So happy that you are here today. Welcome to our Libsyn monthly webinar. It is called Launching Your Podcast in 2022, What You Need to Know. So if you are a podcaster that's looking to launch your podcast, or possibly a seasoned podcaster who just has, the itch to do another one, this is what you need to know. So you're in the absolutely right place here today. Just in case you don't know who I am, if you're new here, I am Elsie Escobar. I am the community manager over at Libsyn. I kind of run a little bit of the front-facing communications on Twitter, on Facebook, everything that's like front-facing. And I also produce our show called The Feed, the official Libsyn podcast. Now, we are going to be posting this over to YouTube. So it's going to be on YouTube as well. And all of the links that we talk about within this specific webinar will be available for you over there as well. So don't fret. You will get all the information here. And now I get an opportunity to introduce my guest, co-host extraordinaire. Please meet from here. Wait, hold on one second, because we're going to talk a little bit about her just as we start to move through this process. Bethany Hawkins is the CEO and founder of Crackers and Soup. It is a podcast management company whose mission is to assist women podcast hosts that need the best F word known in the English language. And that's freedom. Y'all, that's freedom. That's what she's given you. Since its inception in 2019, Crackers and Soup has worked on over 50 podcasts, from creating cover art to assisting to post-recording production and everything in between. And of course, including launches, which is why she's here today. Now, Bethany's own podcast is called Chatting Over Chowder, where two minority women talk to other women in the podcasting industry about what podcasts they listen to while eating chowder. Oh my God. And look at this beautiful website. I'm a little jelly. Oh my God. Welcome, Bethany. Yay!
How can I live up to that hype? The mystery continues. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Hey, listen, we are going to be keeping it. Oh, I mean, you deserve all of the kudos, my love, all of the kudos. And I am super stoked to have you here today. So one of the reasons that I asked you to come chat with me about launching a podcast is because we both have different experiences in the space, of course. And I've been around for a wee bit here. I started podcasting in mid 2006. So I'm like in it. And have been in it for a while. So I've been working with podcasters one-on-one and in groups for a long time. And I've seen the space shift. And then you started about 3 years ago, right? In terms of launching and stuff and working with podcasters.
Yes. So in 2019, I had a strict, I will not launch rule.
Okay.
Which you did not know.
I did not know this. No.
And then I just started launching last year because I saw people coming to me for their post-production and they weren't set up appropriately during their launch. And I couldn't take it. So I abandoned my epic I will not launch rule, and I started a package called Never Say Never to Launching.
Oh,
and that's how I started launching.
That's amazing. So, but given that though, it's a smaller amount of time, right? It's like the past few years that you've started to do this versus when I've been around for a little bit longer than you. And not to say that there's anything bonus. That's one thing that I really feel very passionate about the podcasting industry, that yes, sometimes experience in years is an important aspect of it. But this industry continues to change and evolve so much that the level of expertise that folks that have just started coming in are bringing so much more intuition to the thing, newness to the entire process. And so I think that this is going to be amazing. So right now, given that, I'm going to be talking a little bit about a little bit of the historical context of how we can move through. Oh my goodness, look at me. I'm moving way past what I was supposed to have been doing here. Pardon me, my loves. Okay, we're going to go here. So I'm going to be moving into a little bit of historical context of of where we started from, or at least where I started from, where back in the day, we didn't really even have much of an idea in terms of launching. If you really wanted to start a podcast, you just started a podcast. And I think the most challenging thing that you needed to do was literally just be able to fill out the information in your RSS feed, right, within a podcast host. That's essentially what you did. The majority of time there was, I think it was seriously spent in trying to input your information into the different podcast directories, because there were so many other ones at that time, not like in terms of podcast apps, but smaller directories that you inputted your RSS feed with. And of course, iTunes at that time was very big, and you had to do it inside of iTunes, the app itself, on your computer. And that was it. There really wasn't much of anything else than that. There wasn't that much going on in the space. And the idea of launching didn't really ever exist because there weren't that many podcasts out there to do that. The idea started to really change, I would say, in about like around 2015, 2014, 2015. It started to really pick up. So folks really started to have a little bit more once they started to get started moving into that groove. And so part of it was the idea that the pressure was really all into creating the podcast itself. But a lot of that now has actually changed. And so we are going to go ahead and continue here with Bethany as she talks about what it's like to launch, or at least her experience, what it's like to launch in the present.
Thank you, Elsie. And I love the historical context of it. I find it so interesting because when I have discovery calls with clientele now, the very first question I ask them is, why do you want to launch a podcast? Or if they're coming to me for post-production, I ask them, what do you need assistance with in your podcast? And there are so many different moving parts in launching now that truly having a launch manager and somebody to assist, it's not a necessity, but it absolutely helps. And there was a summit that I was in on Saturday, and somebody was talking about statistics, and they were talking about how 10 podcasts and 10 podcast episodes is usually the majority of episodes that are dropped in a podcast, and then they pod fade. I've heard 7, but the numbers 7 to 10 really aren't that far apart. And the fact that you're going to put all of this emphasis into this work and only drop, let's say, 10 episodes is really sad and kind of problematic. So if you're creating a podcast, you want the podcast to last. You want it to be sustainable. And the only way that you can do that is by setting yourself up for success by launching your podcast correctly.
I love that. And so before we get to all of the wisdom that Bethany's going to be bringing to the table here, I would like to speak into something that I don't really help clients launch in the way that Bethany does. People come to me for help with launch, as in like I send them to where they need to go. It's like the before you launch aspect of it. And these are some things that I often tell podcasters, regardless of where they're starting from. Number one is that you really have to know yourself and what you're getting yourself into. So what does that even mean? Understand who you are. And I guess as a human being, and it has a lot more to do with a lot less to do with your content than actually the type of person that you are in your actual everyday life, because a lot of podcasting is kind of like a consistent habit you have to add to your world nowadays. So what is your daily life like? Meaning, do you have a lot of things that you're doing already on the daily? Do you have a children in the house? Are you taking care of old elderly parents? Do you have do you live in the middle of a city where there's lots of noise around you? Do you have a job that you have to go to every day? What time of the day do you have in order for you to create content? A lot of those questions that you add, and can you really add something else to that mix? So important before you start to see what your capacity is. The second thing is, what's your tech propensity like? Because there are a lot of us getting into podcasting can be I guess, full of tech as you possibly would want. There's many of us who really love the latest gadgets and how to make all the things work. And we really love troubleshooting. Like when something's not working, you just strive to do it. But there's a lot of us who just simply don't. We're like, I just want it to work, right? You have to know what that's like. And there's no shame in you not wanting to do anything with tech, but just know that there are going to be issues that are going to come up when you're dealing with this. Therefore, you have to go into the podcasting space with the idea that when you do come into trouble, which you will, do you have a support team around you and what that looks like? Lastly, how do you How do you problem solve? Because are you the type of person that goes into Facebook and you're like, oh my God, I had this horrible thing, I need help? Or are you the type of person who is going to get in front of your computer and like Google everything you possibly can to find a solution to the problem? Are you looking for a support team that is really like on it with you and you really want a partner there when you're butting up against problems? The way that you deal with problems is going to really show up exponentially before you start your podcast. And so you need to have your idea of, how are you going to back yourself up? How are you going to have the support that you need? And so given all of that stuff, I would like us to kind of think about how you're going to prepare your path to that. That means if you do have a little bit of an investment money, do you have a team that you're going to hire? Or you need to start to research a lot of podcasting groups out there that can be supportive of you. If you have just a tiny little bit of money, maybe subscribe or actually be part of a membership like the WOC Podcasters Facebook group or the She Podcast Facebook group, or, Podcast Movement has also a lovely membership that they run together. And we all do, and even here at Libsyn, we do these webinars. Understand where you're going to be getting your help if you are looking for that support. So you start with that. And whether or not you're doing this for business or for pleasure or for both, or how you are going to take over the world for that. But now we're going to start again here thinking about what, Bethany? Organization is something that you told me we needed to really talk about.
I do. And I just have to say, you just dropped 1,000 gems in like 4.4 seconds. So if everybody that's watching was loving the gems that Elsie just dropped, please take a picture of her, tag her on Twitter, tag her on Instagram, tag Libsyn, because the information, that's like, you should pay for it information. So make sure that you're giving love on social media and tagging her on all of these gems in this incredible conversation that we're having right now. So my whole thing is organization. I need to be organized because there's so many moving parts to podcasting, especially to launching. So my favorite organization tool is Asana. And I know that there are different organization tools. There's Trello, there's ClipArt, there's, I don't know. Those are the only three that I can think of.
Hey, listen, we have so many. There's Notion, which I know you do not like. But
Notion and I had a bad experience. Like, I broke up with Notion like the first day we went on a date. I left him there with the dinner bill. Like, Notion was so stressful to me.
I hear you. But anyway, yes, there are plenty of them, and there is not one that's going to be better for you. Guess which one is going to be the one that you use is the one that's going to work for you. Okay, that's really the answer. All right, go ahead.
Exactly. So let me show you what I create when I'm launching a podcast. So in my Asana board, I have the things that are necessary, like the launch date. And the reason why I have the launch date first is because I actually reverse engineer. So the date that we're going to be launching that episode, we're going to move backwards to when we're going to know when everything is due. Also, creating an email account for a podcast. An email account is actually a necessity for when you are finding your podcasting hosting station. It's going to be mandated. And also, if you are going to be creating a podcast to support your business, I would have a separate email for your podcast, because when you start getting traction and when you start getting listeners, you're going to want to do a call to action, right? You're going to want to have your listeners contact you, let you know if there's anything that you want to answer on their behalf, and you don't want that to get lost in all of your business emails. So having a separate email for your podcast will absolutely help that. Podcast hosting station, there is only one. It is Libsyn. Sign up. I mean, you can do no wrong with Libsyn. Libsyn has such a great report. It's so true. It's so true. And I'm not getting paid to say this. It's truly been my experience because I have launched so many podcasts since the beginning of last year. And there are other podcast hosting stations that people have chosen. And I respect their wishes because they're my clients and they have paid me money. However, I have side-eyed them when they've told me that they want me to get them on certain hosting stations.
However,
And every time, like, I am so champion Libsyn. And every time I get somebody on Libsyn, I'm like, I know that distribution is going to be a breeze, because there are some hosting stations where if you're distributing to certain platforms, they don't have the best reputation or they're not as well known. And those distribution platforms can actually deny you being on that platform because of the hosting station that you're on. So you really want to do your due diligence. You want to be cognizant of the hosting station that's going to be giving you your RSS feed, because you don't want it to be problematic in the long run. And if it is, you can always just transfer over to Libsyn. It's very easy. You can do it. It's fine. But let's start you off with success first. So podcast distribution, what does that mean? That means getting on places like Apple and Google Podcast and Spotify. Well, do we want to go beyond Spotify? I don't know. Question mark. Castbox. I haven't decided how we feel about Spotify yet. I'm still putting my clients on there. And most of my clients are Black women. And I'm like, but I'll do it anyway. Amazon Music, Stitcher. Those are the 6 major ones that you want to be on. And a lot of people haven't heard of Castbox, but Google Podcast and Castbox are actually the number one. And I think Castbox is the number 3 for Droid phone users.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of people in the United States have Apple products. However, in the majority of the world, they actually use Droid phones. So if you want to have an international podcast, when you're setting up your launch, you want to set it up for success where literally everybody in the world can listen to you.
Absolutely. I am so in agreement with you that you actually called that out, because in terms of being able to diversify our audience, particularly if you're speaking to folks that aren't necessarily falling into one specific lane, we have to really think outside of the US. And there are so many incredible platforms that are outside of the US that really are the things that people are actually listening to. And there's about 80% are Android users in the world. 80% use Android in the world. It's just that in the US, and usually it's sometimes in the Western Hemisphere, it tends to skew a little bit more towards iOS devices. Not discounting the fact that iOS is so important, but we also have to be as expansive in making sure that folks can get and listen to your show outside of iOS.
And it's amazing. So for I think it's been the last 4 weeks in a row, my podcast has been between number 1 to number 5 in Bermuda. So that's I'm like, amazing. Thank you, Bermudians. I am going to Bermuda. So if I ever decide to do a podcasting tour, Bermuda is my first stop. Like that's just it. Which is because I am a total Droid user. Like, I am anti OIS. Because I feel like that they're going to take over the world and that we're going to be an iRobot because of Apple products.
Yeah, I hear you.
But
Even though I'm obsessed. I mean, I'm like, yeah, and then I'm like surrounded by every Apple device ever existed right now around me. But
that is
anyway,
my co-host.
continue.
That is Charlotte.
I
Like
know.
she is all about. She's like you, and we've had this conversation before.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
So another thing that you want to start thinking about, it isn't a necessity, but it's things that you should know, is a podcast landing page. And again, I'm going to throw out Libsyn because I heart them so much. So when you subscribe with Libsyn, they actually give you a podcast website or podcast landing page. And this is great for a couple of different reasons. So when you set up your podcast landing page, and I always suggest that when you are launching that you drop your trailer first, 2
Mhm.
weeks before your first episode. And the reason why that is because that is going to allow you to have an RSS feed. You're going to take that RSS feed and then you're going to apply to get onto all of the podcast distribution platforms that we've just discussed. However, you can then advise all of your like social media people, your aunties, your mother, your uncle, your daddy, your cousin, to go to your podcast landing page. And listen to your trailer. And that is actually going to increase the amount of downloads because they're listening to it on the landing page. So if you don't have your podcast trailer anywhere else, because you're not going to, because it takes like a couple of days, and some platforms it can take weeks depending upon when you're trying to launch that trailer in the year. If it's like Christmas time, if it's around Thanksgiving, forget about it. They're all on vacation. So if you want to advise your people to go listen, podcast landing page is just a perfect opportunity to start gaining those downloads without even having your first episode drop yet. So again, if you're liking this information, screenshot it, share it on Twitter, share it on Instagram, and let your people know that you're learning.
Hey, before you continue, just wanted to let you know that Bermuda is in the house for you, Bethany. I do believe Katrina is here to support your Bermuda people are here. They are here to support you. Yes.
Katrina, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Let me know the places to eat. I like to eat.
Oh my God. Yes. And also, just to let you know, Angelica did have a really quick question. She was saying, like, how do you find the link to the landing page? I only see the directory page with the episode. There's a separate little area where you set up a destination, which is what we call the different places where your podcast goes to, that you can set inside the Libsyn backend. So you do set that up separately. The directory is just a sort of like a bonus, and you can definitely switch that around. So it's a separate area. It's like the podcast page that you set that up. Anyway, continue, please. Go forth, Bethany.
Which is a great question, because even on the landing page as well, you can insert links when you get your platform links onto that website page. So if you direct somebody to the landing page, they can then click that link and they're at Apple. They can then click that link and they're at Spotify. So it literally is the hub of everything for your podcast. So anyway, guest setup. So if you're going to have guests on your podcast, you want to have a way in which you are going to be communicating the same way with them, and the way in which they can answer questions quickly. Now, this is a whole other conversation, but when you do your guest setup, you don't want to have a 25-page questionnaire that it looks like that they're applying for the FBI when they're only truly applying to be on your podcast. Don't do that to your guests. It's very overwhelming. And you also want to make it as easy for them as possible. So if you know that you want particular people on your podcast, i.e., I wanted Elsie. I was like, Elsie, love me, be on my podcast. I made it very easy for her. She clicked on the link, she answered a couple of questions, and then she scheduled the time in which she was available. And then she got another follow-up email, and then she got another follow-up email, and then she got her last follow-up email. It couldn't have been any, I don't know if she read any of the emails, but it couldn't have been any easier for Elsie to get onto my podcast. And that's what you want to do. And there are a couple of different companies that allow that. So Calendly is one of them. They're truly, truly wonderful. Acuity, I believe, allows you to ask questions as well as schedule.
I use Acuity for my stuff. Yeah. Acuity is great.
Yep. So those are the things that you're going to want to look into. It not only makes your guest life simpler, it also makes your life simpler as well.
Absolutely.
Another thing that
Sorry, may I
another
interrupt
thing
you
that you
for a
have
moment?
Oh,
Just in
absolutely.
case we have folks in here too. Don't think that if you have a podcast, you have to have guests on your show, because there are times when obviously it's just going to be you, or maybe it's just you and a co-host. Because I know we both, our shows are co-hosted shows. We really don't have guests. I mean, meaning you do have guests, Bethany, but your core conversations are happening with your co-host. And that's what happens with mine as well. Although I do have to say that having a service that provides that opportunity for you to sign, or to have people sign up and talk with you maybe on the show, or maybe you're branching out, or maybe you're doing something special for a celebration for your show, think about it as part of the infrastructure of setting up, if that's where you might be moving towards. I just wanted to let you know you do not have to have interview shows. But
that is such a valid point. And it goes back to what you had initially said when you were talking about knowing who you are and knowing what you want out of your podcast. If you are a person who doesn't like to engage with others and consistently have to try to find guests, solo podcasts podcasts are amazing. And on the flip note, if you're somebody who knows that you can't just speak to a mic and have a stream of consciousness that is going to be effective in that episode, always have a guest so that you can feed off of them. So it goes hand in hand, and it always goes back to what you had said: know your why and know who you are. So another must-have when you're launching your podcast is cover art. And there, not only is it a must-have, but there are also specs that you have to have in order to meet the demands of some podcast distribution platforms. So in regards to cover art, I'm just going to do like a public service announcement. When you're naming your podcast, you don't have to name your podcast. People know it's a podcast because it's on a podcast platform. On your cover art, you don't have to have a microphone. You don't have to have headphones. You can just have your beautiful display with your title name. Because it's on a podcast platform, people are going to know it's a podcast platform. I will get down off of my soapbox now, and I will go to the
that you all need to write that down somewhere, because this is, I know that this seems so simple, but that's like gold right there, man. Know that for sure. Continue on.
Podcast description. I see a lot of podcasts without podcast descriptions, and it gives me a wee little baby rash. Not like an overwhelming, like, oh, I got chicken pox or like the mumps, but just a wee little baby rash. And the reason why is because people would never know what my podcast name is. If I did, what my podcast was about, I should say, if I didn't have my description. Chatting over chowder, I was in another group. They threw it out there. They were like, put your podcast title and let people guess what your podcast is about. I had people saying, oh, so you talk about New England events? And I was like, no. Yes, it was the wildest thing, but it was a great exercise. It was so informative. And I was like, I'm not changing my podcast because it's a part of my brand, but this is so interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you want people to actually know what your podcast is about, and please have that want and desire, like that's a great want and desire to have, make sure you have your podcast description. And it doesn't have to be 1,200 pages. It's just a blurbage of an overview of the entirety of your podcast. It will help people find and understand who you are and what you're talking about. An intro and outro is not necessarily needed, but it is very helpful so that you're not creating the same information over and over again in your intro and as in your outro. In your outro, you kind of want to do a call to action. In your intro, you actually want to do a call to action too, because in your outro, a lot of people have turned off by the end. It's just a fact.
And, you know, just to speak into that a little bit, you could actually do a little bit of a pre-crafted intro that's incredibly short, and you don't have to kind of redo it every single time, but it does need to be, if you're going to be using a pre-recorded one, it does need to be really like very short, because I can tell you I'm a huge podcast binger. I'm a professional podcast listener. So when I find you and I love you, I will grab all of your shows and put them in my ears, and I will binge the entire day. And there comes a time when if you have like a 30-second intro, I'm just over it. I'm over it because I don't have I just want to get to what it is, and I end up just going forward into it. So if you can make it real quick, that would be incredible. I've looked at, some of the shows that I've done. My co-host, when we do our Show for She podcast, she immediately gets into that intro live and unscripted, and she makes it super fun, but she's got a little bit of she knows what her thing is at the beginning. When I do mine for the feed, I actually write the entire script out for myself. It's got some elements that are repeatable, but then there's also, I have like 2 or 3 sentences in between that change every time. But by the time I'm finished with that, in that first intro at the beginning, I believe it's about 15 seconds or so, I get through that. And so people can immediately get, oh, that's what it's going on in there. Then I get into more of the show, but it's something for y'all to think about for sure.
I love that. So let me ask you, when you are binging your podcast, if there is a musical interlude,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like that is more powerful than having just a verbal beginning?
Not really. Sometimes it depends on the music. If the music is appropriate, and it's great, but never long, because the first time I listen to a show with a long musical intro, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. That's so nice. But the more that I listen, I go, oh my God. So then I have to go forward fast. What I have seen folks do in the past, if they really love their music, is they put it on at the end. So they can really put the musical bed, whatever that is, the 30 seconds, a minute, at the end of the episode. So if people want to jam to that music, they can get the entire thing. But at the beginning, you need to get in it. You need to get in it, because people are not going to have that patience to continue to listen to how beautifully you've constructed the entire thing.
That's so captivating. I could talk to you about that for days. Okay, but so trailer. We already talked a little bit about your trailer and why it's important to post your trailer before you post your first episode, so you can get yourself on all of those platforms. Mm-hmm. So your trailer shouldn't be a 45-minute conversation. A trailer is it can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, but it is an overview of what your entire podcast is going to be about. So it is the audio version, essentially, of your podcast description, but it's going to be a little more in depth. You're going to want to have a trailer. Do as I say, not as I do. We didn't have a trailer for our podcast because the carpenter's house is always the worst house on the street.
Oh, absolutely.
I would totally get on my clients and be like, I need your audio for your trailer. But for us, we're like, nah, we're just going to wing it. We're going to throw ourselves in the first episode. We didn't explain who we were. Do as I say, not as I do. So ads. If you are going to look for a sponsor for your podcast before your launch, and you are going to be inserting ads, you're going to want to really think about where you want to put the ads. As Elsie had said earlier, if you're going to it's called pre-roll when you put it in the beginning of the episode. If you're going to have an ad and a pre-roll, you have to be very cognizant of how long that ad is going to be. Because if you have 3 ads that you've contracted to do in the beginning, and then you have your intro, and then you have a preamble, and then you get into the episode, you've already lost a significant amount of people. So just keep that in mind. When you're having ads, think about where you want to place it and how long you want it to place. So a stinger is just a musical interlude. It's just music that can go from section to section. It's not necessary to have that on during a launch process, but just so you know, if people speak of stingers or stings, that's what that is. So your first episode, am I going too in depth?
No, dude, go for it. Okay. Continue. You still have a few minutes. You have about a handful of minutes. A handful.
Okay. So your first episode, you're going to want to be really organized on where you keep your raw audio. If you have a guest, where you keep their social media links, where you keep their headshots, where you keep your show notes, where you're going to keep your finalized edited version. I had a client that was on a podcasting platform that I'm not a fan of, and her entire podcast just deleted. And she had to contact them, and it was a whole thing. She got her podcast back. However, I let her know I have all of her finalized episodes. So if we needed to reinvent the wheel, we would have lost all of that download information, but I still had it and we could have recreated it. If you're going to be doing graphics, audiograms, quotes, reels, you're going to want to house them in your organization tool as well. And you're also going to want to know when you uploaded that information into your podcast hosting station. So this is where organization is really important. If you are the only person doing your podcast, Google Drive is not the answer. Even if you're the only person doing your podcast. I love Google Drive. I love it for so many things. Mm-hmm. But it can become very congested and very convoluted. So again, organization is key. There are so many different moving parts to when you're launching your podcast. You're going to want to invest in yourself as well as in your podcast and get an organization tool. And a lot of them actually have free trials or free versions that you can utilize. And do the research. It'll benefit you, I promise.
It's all good, man. Absolutely. All right. And I think Corey's dropping some wisdom in the chat there. He's saying cloud storage or external storage of your files is a must. Backup on numerous platforms and devices. Now that is absolute gold. And it's something that most people don't even think about at all. If for whatever reason your life happens to get in the way, and it happens to every single one of us, and something needs to happen to your show, or you need to shut down the account, or you need to, something happens, please understand that, and we're talking here for everybody, for podcast hosting platforms, if you shut down your account, we don't keep your files. I just wanted to let you know, because that's kind of like if you move out of an apartment building and you just don't really take your stuff and you just leave, there's going to come a time when that apartment complex, they're going to go, we have to get rid of this stuff in here. Like, they don't need to put that in storage. They don't. You're not paying for that anymore. So think about it in terms of your podcast host, that if you leave, you got to do that. Now, one of the easiest ways to back your stuff up is for you to subscribe to your show and then download it to your device. I mean, that's one thing to do it. But of course, like what I do for ours is I have it on a Google Drive, and I have it on Dropbox, and I have it in external drive, because I'm a little crazy like that, because I never know when I'm going to have to come back with that. But that is some really key information to make sure that we are doing the thing. All right. So
I have an external drive as well.
Oh, good. Yeah, because I have all that stuff. So how are we getting here? Are we getting to the point where that first episode that's launched, is that out now?
So let's talk about, before the first episode drops, let's talk about recording the first episode.
Oh my God, let's do that.
Let's talk about audio.
Okay. Oh yes. Oh my God.
So if you hear nothing from us today, just here, do not get a condenser mic.
Good call there. Let's put that
now you can leave.
Somebody write that in the comments. Do not get a condenser microphone.
And here's why.
Yes, go for it.
So a condenser mic takes all of the information and the sounds of the room. A dynamic mic, which is the microphone that you should get if you are a podcaster, just takes the sound that's in front of the microphone and concentrates on that. And it's literally how it's built within the microphone. So when you have a condenser mic, and a condenser mic was very popular, and when I started out in 2019, it rhymes with you Betty.
Do not name names.
Nope. It just rhymes with stuff. And the audio was very hard to edit because there was just so much feedback from the surrounding area. So your best bet is to get a dynamic mic and to use plug-in headphones. plug-in headphones are going to be your best friends, because if you are using headphones that don't plug in, there can be feedback from that as well. So you're going to want to make it as easy on yourself as possible to have good audio.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't, especially if you're not interested in editing, and that's a whole conversation that we can get into as well, because a lot of people don't want to lose the authenticity. Although I believe that you can edit and still maintain your authenticity. You can still clean up your audio.
Yep.
Because I've told Elsie, I just start giggling incessantly on my podcast, and I just get into a giggle fit. And when I'm editing, I was like, oh, I have to get that out of there. Like, nobody needs to listen to me wheeze laugh for a hot 4 minutes. Like, nobody needs that in their life.
Hey, when you are editing your own show, you really see yourself at your core, or hear yourself at your core. And then there is going to come a time when you're going to get over yourself. You just cannot stand the sound of your own voice. And you do hit that wall, but then you also have to back it up. And then, you know, you can still keep the giggles. I'm a huge giggler. I make a lot of noises. I say random things in between to like bring things together, just because you get uncomfortable with silences and whatnot. And it works well while we're talking. So we are currently, Bethany and I are talking. This sounds fairly natural. If we say giggle, and random insertion of things, it's great. But when you're listening for the podcast, you actually don't need a lot of that stuff. I just snip it up. I snip stuff, and then it sounds so much cleaner, and it still has that beautiful, authentic, organic conversation without all of the extra stuff. So don't think that you're just cleaning yourself up just a tiny little bit, being nice and, all on it. And just one little thing, our team shared the webinar with SHURE microphones that we did last year. In fact, I think it was with Laura from SHURE at the beginning of Q1 in 2021. It is a phenomenal webinar where we went deep into the difference between condensers and dynamic microphones, and she really just broke it down. So Bethany did a fantastic job in like 5 seconds, and then we do it in 45 minutes. Which is great. And then you'll get a lot more insight if you want to learn a little more. Go.
I love that. And I love SHURE microphones. I know you said I can't drop names, but I love SHURE microphones.
Okay.
They were actually the #1 rated microphones in February of 2022 for dynamic mics.
Ooh.
So, all right. I love stats. So
goodness gracious. She comes like prepared.
So prepared. Also, in regards to audio, you're not going to want to, if you are in a room, you're going to want to be in a room with a lot of soft surfaces. You're not going to want to be near a window. You're not going to want to be near a radiator. You're not going to want to record in your bathroom. These are like, the houses have a lot of open concepts now. That's like a total in thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's the joke where everybody's recording in their closet, because it has those cushiony spaces, like your clothes are taking up all of that sound. If you are wondering about the audio quality, just walk around your house a little bit and see, and just test where it sounds better. And make sure that, like, when you're recording, you're saying, I'm in my bedroom, and explain where you are. And then if I'm in my kitchen, don't record in your kitchen. I'm in my living room, and I'm just so you can test out that audio quality. So that is an audio quality information before you start recording your episode. So when you do record your episode, you're going to want to have either talking points that you want to hit, and you're going to want to be cognizant of the time. I know that some people really enjoy podcasts that are 2 hours long. I have to say, I don't know a lot of them.
Hey, listen, I actually do. I enjoy it. I'm not saying everybody has to do it. All I'm saying is that there is a time and a place, but most of us need to earn the time. That's all I'm saying. I remember when I was doing my acting thing, a lot of folks, like when we were doing a musical, one of the key things one of my directors first said is to us, whenever he was giving us notes, is like, you have to earn the song. You have to earn the right to sing this part. You have to move into that. That's what makes it. And so when you're doing a long form content, you have to do that same thing. You've got to be prepared. You got to fill it. It's not just because it's 2 hours and you're just going to do it. You got to earn those minutes in people's ears. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I love that. If I was watching this webinar, I would have screenshot that and put that in my social media. And I would have tagged Libsyn and I would have tagged Elsie. Earn that time.
Earn that
Whew.
time.
There's so many catchphrases happening today. I need a t-shirt that says earn that time.
Earn the time to speak. Okay.
So once you get that done, you're going to want to you're doing your audio, you want to save it. You're going to want to listen back to it, edit it for authenticity, and then you're going to want, while you're editing, you're going to want to do a little bit of show notes. And Akila Thompson is so amazing with doing show notes for SEO. So SEO, for those who do not know, is search engine optimization. And that means when you go into Google and you type up something like Black women podcasters, if you have Black women podcasters in your show notes, that's going to be part of the SEO and that's going to show up. So you're going to want to be very strategic in the way in which you create your show notes. So when people are typing things that they're trying to find, you just magically appear. Like, what? How did this happen? And this is great for a couple of different reasons. A lot of people are under the impression that when you drop your episode, people listen immediately, and that's not the case. There are months and months and months later that people find your podcast, and like Elsie had said, they may love it so much that they just binge the entire thing. Mm-hmm. And that could be because they found you by searching through show notes. So also, if as you're creating your first episode and you're realizing there's a bunch of stuff that I absolutely adore doing, and there's a bunch of stuff that I absolutely loathe, keep the stuff that you adore and then hire out all of the stuff that you loathe. Because if you continue to do the things that you loathe, you're going to burn out and you're going to be into that category of, I only dropped 10 episodes and then I just abandoned my podcast. And we don't want that for you.
Check this out. That's what that was. That was some gold right there.
It dropped from the ceiling. It dropped.
It absolutely did, because it is, and mind you, we understand that there are budgets out there too. Like, let's say you don't have the coin to be, spending out and buying things and all the stuff. But there is an opportunity for you to start to think about how you can position yourself in a way that it's going to lessen the heaviness of it. Meaning maybe you skip a couple of things for the moment to see if you can execute based on what's going to keep you going. That's perfectly okay. You can always scale up later. The other thing is, let's say it's about being a co-host, a good co-host. I know for me, for my show, She Podcast, I do one side and she does the other side. And then that way we happen to actually love to do what the other one doesn't like to do. And so it works out well. And sometimes finding a partner that can help you do the things you loathe is great. And partnerships are fantastic. Okay.
I love that. I love that co-host sharing. Mm-hmm. That's really smart and that's really great. And it also goes to, if you are going to have a co-host, we don't have this written down, but I think it's really important. If you're going to have a co-host, make sure that you have chosen somebody who you feed off of their strengths and they feed off of your strengths. Mm-hmm. Because, and I know that you and Jessica do this in She Podcasts, you both complement each other extremely well. Because we're like, it's a beautiful marriage. And that's what you have to look at when you're considering a co-host. Do you genuinely enjoy this person, talking to this person, and do they balance you in conversation?
Absolutely. And it's like, and the only reason I was like a little hesitant to like agree with you is because we just happen to have fallen into each other this way. We didn't, it just happened. It's like we have the best chemistry when we work together, and it's really challenging when people go like, how did you find each other? And it really was kismet, if you will, right? And I'm not saying that it's not possible again, but it is, it's very hard to find that. And the only way that you find even that flow is by doing the thing, right? Maybe at first you're not like so great with each other, but the more you work together, the better you're going to be. So,
and to go back to what you had said, it's knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is going to help you find your co-host person. If you don't know who you are and you don't know where your strengths lay, it's going to be a lot harder to find somebody who can play off of that and who can be equal in that conversation, because you're kind of like all over the place.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
know who you are and know what your podcast. Do you see the running theme? Know your why, know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Elsie, I've spoken a lot. Elsie,
You have? Are you ready? So I think that, we're getting now to the point where it is really time to get to that time when you've launched, right? You've launched your podcast. You're kind of moving through. I'm going to switch it off here. And okay, now let's go ahead and summarize some of the things that we talked about here together. Just a really high level view of that launching process. You have to understand that there's so many little bits and pieces, and we are getting almost to the point where we have to like cut it short. There are some things that we kind of skimmed over. There are some resources that we put on the chat there for y'all to check that out. Start adding your questions into the Q&A if there's something specific that we skipped. But now what we're going to do is we're just going to put that the last sort of summary of the key things that we need to look at before we move forth. And I told Bethany when we were talking, I'm like, listen, this is just like super high level. It's not even capitalized. I just was like, copy paste. Let's put this on the screen. And so it'll help us kind of go through. So Bethany, do you want to talk us through like just the main things that we did from here?
Sure. Again, with cover art, you're going to want to make sure that your title is there. You don't have to have headphones. You don't have to have microphones. People are going to know that it is a podcast because it's on a podcast platform. I did forget to mention, if your podcast has profanity in the language, you are going to not want to write that profanity. You're going to have to think of a creative way to insert that word into the content of your cover art, because there are some podcasting platforms that will not allow profanity to be in the title.
Correct.
Which is important to know. And you're also going to want to make sure that you are creating the specs for the platforms as well. So in regards to your title name of your podcast, title names are really interesting. Please don't put "my name is" and have that as your podcast, because in your town, you may be super popular, but in the world, unless you're Brad Pitt, people probably may not know who you are. So they're not going to resonate with the title of your podcast. Like the Bethany Hawkins podcast, I promise you, people will be like, I don't know who that woman is. I don't get what she got to say.
Give it a couple of years, man. Give it a couple of years.
And I still want to do it then, because I'd be like, oh God, that's awful. Who put that podcast? So you're going to really want to be intentional with the title of your name. And you don't want the title to be a podcast name that literally 15 other podcasts have.
Yes.
It is really hard to find a podcast if they are on the 12th page of the Google.
Yes. And, there's a couple of places, y'all, that you can go look for this. You can head over to listennotes.com, I believe it is, listennotes.com, and search for the title that you're thinking about. Head over to podchaser.com. You can also search there. Of course, search in any of the directories out there, in like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that stuff. Search for there. And then I would actually even let you go ahead and check out Amazon Music or even Audible, because the way that they are doing their algorithm in terms of search is slightly different. And so you will actually get a lot of, they're not necessarily skewed at this time in the same way. And I'm skewed not in a bad way, but the algorithm is still building up. So you get all of the people who have the same. I'm astounded whenever I do searches there and I go, oh my gosh, there's so many people with the same podcast name. So go ahead and check it out for sure.
Like I can't when I see people with, I'm like, no. And then also just to piggyback on that a little bit, once you do find your name, if no one else has it, you're just going to want to check for trademark.
Yes.
Because even though somebody may not have that name currently, somebody else may have that name trademarked in some sort of capacity, and you don't want to get sued. If you have taken the time to create your cover art, create your title, create all of these things that we're advising you, you don't want to get a cease and desist letter later on telling you that you have to change your name. It'll stress you out. So description, you just going to put an overview of what your podcast is about. You're going to want to put your name, your co-host name, and just a blurbage. It's really important. Please put a description. Don't just put, Bethany eating soup. That doesn't mean anything to anybody. Like, make sure that you're giving a legitimate description. You're going to want to think of it as like a summarization and the back of a book of what the book is about.
Yep.
That's a good way to treat your description. An audio file. You need an audio file.
You need an audio file. Hello. No, in all honesty, you do need an audio file. Like, you cannot submit your show into any directories without something in your feed, in your podcast feed. So what Bethany was sharing about before in terms of having a little promo or a little trailer for your episode, have it be about a minute. It can be that short, and have it be part of your feed, because that's the only thing that's going to get it submitted. The validation is going to fail if there is no media file attached to your RSS feed.
And you're also going to want to think about if it's an MP3 or a wave. A wave is a lot heavier. So a lot of platforms don't allow you to do waves. So you're going to want to put it in MP3. But when you are editing, you're going to want to edit in wave, because it gives better audio. RSS feed, that you're going to get that when you upload your audio file. Again, your why. I know we kind of like hammered this in, but it is the utmost importance, because you are not going to like your podcast. Some days you're going to be like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I heard that everybody's been talking about Swindler, and I'd rather watch that. And you're just going to want to not do it.
Oh my goodness.
Your why. I still haven't seen Swindler, but I see it all over these social media streets. But your why is going to bring you back when you don't want to do it. And it has to be more powerful than complacency. Because your why is going to make you listen to your podcast so that you get better. Your why is going to make you a better interviewer, a better conversationalist, a better engager, a better listener. Your why, your podcast is riding on the shoulders of your why. So make sure your why is impactful. And finally, how are you going to execute? Just make sure that you're organized, and make sure that you have your audio files on different places, because as Elsie said, when you move, you move.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I know we are coming into here to bringing all of this back down again. We're moving into the Q&A section here. There is a lot more little smaller bits of wisdom that we are covering up here today. Please remember, you can actually watch the replay of this immediately after this is finished, which is going to be in about 15 minutes, because we're going to do Q&A for about 15 or so. So you have access to it right away. You can still check the chat, and also it will be posted into our YouTube channel with all of the corresponding links, everything that we've mentioned in here. So there is not much that you're going to miss out on. If you do have any other questions right now, put them in that ask a question area. I'm going to go ahead and check out some of the quick stuff that we can answer together. Are you ready, Bethany? Here we go.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Here's the first one. Could you offer some tips on relaunching a podcast that's gone dormant? And this is from Andrea. Andrea is asking some good questions. Do you have tips there, Miss Bethany?
I love that. I think that in order to relaunch a podcast that's gone dormant, let your audience know what happened. Be candid. Make an episode, record an episode saying, this is why it went dormant. These were, I mean, you don't have to like bleed all over the episode, but just give them right. You don't have to tell them your whole, especially if it was something that was, if it was something that was very personal,
Mm-hmm.
you can do it in a way in which you're not being completely and utterly vulnerable, but just saying, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. However, there were some things that had come up, and I want to continue with the podcast. And then you can do like an intro, and then with your most listened to podcast episode, you can say, I want to introduce you to this episode that was launched on such and such a date. Take a listen. And I'm going to be making future episodes. They're going to be dropping every Monday or every other Monday. And then, but before you do that, figure out why your podcast went dormant. Don't drop an episode saying that you're back and then don't be back.
Yes. That's so great. Oh my God, yes. So absolutely, Corey calls it out there in the chat. Transparency helps with authenticity. Absolutely. One way that I would suggest as well is that sometimes when we're coming back, we are so full of like, oh, I have to tell everybody what I've been up to. But you also have to remember that podcasting moves through time and space, and there's going to be times when somebody's going to find your podcast, your old podcast, or whatever's been dormant after you came back again. So then like they won't even know you were gone. So then they're going to get to that episode and they're going to go, what's happening here, right? So this is another bit of suggestion in addition to what Bethany was talking about, is maybe you start off kind of in the same way, give everybody a heads up as to like if there's a change of content or is it a change of, you're taking it a different way, and go like, hi, thank you so much for coming back to the show. It's been a little bit. Today we're going to be covering X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's a little different than what you were thinking about. At the end of the episode, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight as what's been happening with me or what's happened to me if you have been listening for a while and you've noticed that I've been gone. Okay, let's take it on. And then you go into your show, you do your thing, and at the end, you can give a personal something at the end of the show so that there is like that sense of still that transparency, that authenticity, and you're able to share with your audience when you're ready to be back. But you have to be ready to be back. Like you cannot say like, I've been gone for so long, and then do it again the next week and then the next week, because that gets a little weird, I think. So for sure. All right, moving on. Okay, this is from Dr. Michael Wright, and he asks, I am good at creating content. My editor is great at publishing. What I need is someone who can audit my show and provide ways I can improve and increase downloads and grow my contact list. Any ideas?
So I actually do consultations in regards to editing podcasts.
God.
Who knew that? What?
I know.
But, which is funny.
Yes.
So what? This is a two-part. This is a two-parter.
Okay.
I don't so much concentrate on downloads. I concentrate on impact. So if you have people that are listening to your show regularly and they are reaching out in some way, somehow, and saying, I love your show. I gathered this gem. This was super dope. I'm going to implement this in my life. That is more profound to me than downloads, because somebody could have downloaded your show, subscribed, completely forgot about it, and it's still counting as a download. But they don't ever have to listen to it. So that's number one. So I would concentrate more on engaging with my audience. And you can do that as actually a call to action in your episodes. And this goes back to creating a podcast email. Hey, you listen weekly. I'm so excited, and I'd love to know what content you want to hear. I would love to know what you loved about this episode. And you can even make a game out of it if you have merchandise, or tell them that you're going to shout out their name. Send me an email and I will shout out your name at the beginning of the episode. Everybody likes to hear their name shouted out on like a radio station or on a podcast, or just like, or just like in a tag.
Oh,
I promise you, people will listen just to hear if you shouted out their name.
oh
So
my
those
God,
are
yes.
just a couple of different ways.
Those are ways. And just to let you know, yes, Bethany does this. You can click the link right at the bottom of the screen. You can book a discovery call with her. There are other pros out there that do have this on the list. Like they do have this. I think it's called a podcast audit, where they can really, you can hire them and they can do this for you. They can really do an entire audit on your show to be able to do that. So yes, that is absolutely a thing for sure. Okay, moving on here, we have a quick question that I'm just going to answer right away. Is it a requirement for your guests to have a mic, headphones too, or just highly recommended? I would say as much as possible, yes, to have a microphone, but I know there's a lot of people that don't. So I understand, but everyone should have headphones. Everyone should have. I have headphones that you can't see right now, but I'm wearing corded headphones. Corded headphones, yes, because if not, that's going to create such trouble for editing and possible bleed and echo. And yes, headphones. So yes, absolutely. And Corey answered that same question in there. He said definitely should be a requirement, especially if you're in a noisy environment. Absolutely. Now, Corey Gums, he is the incredible person behind blackpodcastersassociation.com. So go ahead and check out the Black Podcasters Association, it's an amazing association with incredible education and passionate community. So check those out there. Folks, can you please put the link in the chat, please? That would be amazing. Okay, let's see. Should opening, closing credits be a different voice? This as a question from Christopher. Bethany.
It's your preference.
Yep, me too. I agree. Here, let me tell you one thing, Christopher. One thing that is a pet peeve of mine. Yeah, it absolutely is your preference. It's all good. This is the only thing that I would suggest, though. If you are getting a professionally done intro or outro with that sounds incredible, you need to live up to that intro and outro with your audio, because there's been times when I've heard a podcast and I'm like, oh my God, that intro is fire. And I'm so excited. And then you hear that the person's on their phone. And then the loudness levels, meaning that it's really great. And then it's I don't understand. However, in this show, we're going to be going into this. And I'm like, oh my God, don't do that. So it has to be on par. It has to be on par. That's the only thing that I say. Okay, here's another one. Do you think that launching now, you need the video component? This is a question from Daisy.
I think that's a great question. I think the video can drive traffic to your podcast. I think that there are people that are visual learners, and then there are people that are audio learners, and then there are people that are both. If you are making a video when you're creating your podcast, there is no reason why you should not be repurposing that content. You're already doing it, make it happen, make it work for you.
Yep. All right. And then what I would say to you is that the video component is actually part of just your overall marketing campaign, but you don't want to spend too much time creating so much content, because at this point in time, it's just a really hard thing to really think about in terms of ROI for getting subscription to your show. There's nothing that correlates a video component or promotion with video, whether it's video like you're watching right now or an audiogram, to direct subscribers or followers of your show. There's no correlation there. That said, though, video is for sure fantastic for visibility. So if you're using Reels, right, on Instagram, that's going to get more folks involved with what in the world is she doing, right? Or what are they doing in there? Having it on TikTok, more reach, right? It's more about reach, getting eyes. This is something Jessica Kupferman taught me, my co-host for She Podcast. She goes, it's not about getting people to listen. It's getting eyes on your podcast, having that first touch and base of your eyes. So yes, in that perspective, you'll get more reach, but you cannot get a guarantee that people are going to then go ahead and subscribe to your show or listen to an episode. There's no correlation there at this point in time. But yes, it's a fantastic way to promote your show. Daisy asked where you can get specs for the cover art. There's a link to a what do you call it? Knowledge base article in the chat there that you're welcome to check it out. Can you use StreamYard to live stream and record the podcast? This is Brittany that asks this question. Do you have anything to say about this, Bethany? I have some ideas in this, but go forth.
I've been on StreamYard a few times, but I actually don't utilize StreamYard for myself. So this is all you, Elsie. You do you.
All right. So yes, there are. I love StreamYard. It's one of the easiest ways to go live and to get a really solid recording. I've used it for both ways, meaning going live and also using it to record, because you can actually record without going live, which is fabulous. And then if you are there's a specific tier, and I think Corey just answered the question in there for Brittany as well. I believe that there is I can't remember if it's like it's more than what I'm paying for. What happens is when you get that account, you actually can record, and then you get separate tracks given to you from if anybody's in there. It's fantastic. So then you get your video track in one track. So the video is in one track. And then you get separate audio tracks, which is genius. Love, love, love the possibility of being able to do that for sure. Restream is another choice that you can do. Absolutely. They actually do the same thing. It depends on what account. And then we are actually using right now another service called Ecamm. It's called Ecamm Live, and Ecamm Live also allows you to not only get your video, but you actually just click a button and you get separate tracks for the audio. If we wanted to repurpose this as a podcast, we definitely could do that. Now, all of these are paid. There's nothing that I just said that is free. Just as an FYI, there's also Squadcast, does the same thing. You can record video, separate audio tracks. Riverside FM, another one, video and separate audio. They actually do separate video tracks as well. That's one of the differentiations
Zencaster as well.
So yes, do you suggest show notes versus transcripts, says Daisy? And we're going to be wrapping it up here in just a moment or two. Yes.
I do suggest show notes. In regards to the versus transcripts, I feel that because of the hearing impaired community and how podcast is growing so much, transcripts are going to actually be a requirement in the future. I don't know if it's going to be mandated, but I think that a lot of different platforms are going to be requiring it so that communities who are hearing impaired are able to read the transcripts of what's being said in the podcast. So if you want to start off with just show notes, just keep in mind that you may potentially want to look into transcripts and see how they operate. There are some AIs that do transcription. However, you still have to go in because they can get language horribly wrong. Especially, I live in New England. Sometimes I say things and I have a very heavy Massachusetts accent, and the things that they think that I'm saying, I did not say. So if you are going to be using the AI for transcription, you are still going to have to take that time or hire somebody out to take that time and opportunity to read through the transcript to make sure that it is accurate.
Absolutely. I'm going to go through these comments really quickly, and then I'm actually going to read this one. Bethany, I think maybe you can start with this. This is from Corey, and he asks, when working with your launch clients that have a co-host, multiple co-hosts, or a team, is there a sole decision maker, or do you need a consensus to finalize everything?
Whoever pays me. That's who's the decision maker.
There you have it, Corey. Whoever's giving you on the hand, that one. Okay.
I have to say, I've never had that problem.
Good. There we go. We are using Daisy. We are using Crowdcast. That's the platform that we're using here today. Disclaimers when it comes to let me see. It says, what disclaimers do you need to include at the end of the podcast? It depends on the material. I think in terms of disclaimers, meaning like you are not a legal person. Like I am not I'm not a lawyer. You need to state that up front. Anytime that you have sponsorship or anything that somebody's paid for you, you definitely need to say, that. If you have a relationship with a platform that you're reviewing, you have to make sure you disclose that. If you have worked with somebody that's on your show, disclose that. If you have something that is possibly explicit in nature that you're speaking about, and your show is generally clean, meaning you're fairly, family friendly, and then you have an episode that is not that, you do need to have a disclaimer at the beginning of the show, just to serve your audience, because you never know if little ears are around or somebody's in a position to not have something, overheard. So you just have to let them know to do that. That's another way to do it. And another quick question. This is from Screens in Focus. What type of wired headphones are best when podcasting? I noticed more and more people are wearing smaller ones rather than the traditional over-the-ear ones. Well, you have to be, in terms of podcasting, we're recording, but we're live, and therefore I have to look cute. And really, that is like big for us. So, but here's another thing though. I do have over-the-ear headphones that I use when I'm recording and I'm not live. That I'm just recording. And when I'm editing, I have over-the-ear headphones. So it's really just what you feel and what makes you feel awesome. So for me, cuteness wins because I like earrings. I have to show, all of those things. So I'm just keeping it real, man. And okay, we're going to have to wrap it up here. I know that I see you, Stephanie. You're asking about Libsyn Studio. It is a free podcast hosting at this moment. We have to remember Libsyn Studio is in beta right now. And it's, if you want to go play around in there, please feel free to play around. It is not a place right now that when things are in beta, I don't do things that are going to be serious. Like I don't put my stake in the ground, right? You know what I mean? Like there are very few things that I test that I use in a beta mode where I am all into it. That's all I'm saying. And this is across the board for anything that is out there. The only thing that I used consistently in beta was Gmail. I don't know if you remember that Gmail was in beta for like 10 years or something obnoxious like that. So, but anyway, we are going to be wrapping it up here today. We have gone for so long. Thank you so much for your time, Bethany. You are an incredible person. Right here, right at the bottom, please make sure that you follow up with her. Tell her how amazing she's been. Follow her on social media. There's so much about Bethany that is an incredible. I'm going to put this up on stage here. I'm going to look at you. Look at how beautiful you are. Her handles are right there at the bottom, chatting over chowder and chatting over on Twitter and Instagram. Give her a nice tag. Make sure that she knows that you're there. Thank you all so much for coming here today. And we are going to be saying bye-bye to y'all.